Okay. Hi, everyone. It's Connect for Women's Pow-HER-Hours, and this is an amazing session on Networking 101, especially in this day and age. And I'm really excited to introduce you to Jennifer. Willey.
Really.
I know there's a way that I'm supposed to be pronouncing this. So it's great. She has been a huge advocate for this program since day one. She's an amazing connector. I wish we could have lunch in New York City sometime soon. And also just been great in terms of mentoring me. So I will leave it to that. Here you go, Jen, and enjoy the session, everyone. And FYI, we're recording. So if you want to be on camera or not on camera, it's totally up to you.
So I am so thrilled to be here with all of you. And we have a lot we are going to get through in the next hour. And actually, Jen is very kind to say those words about me, but she truly is my shero, my inspiration. And I am so hopeful that this 1 hour that we have together, and like I had mentioned, the activity guide that you'll have for yourself to use after today will really help give you what you need to find that next role. It seems like from what I'm seeing in the chat, as well as from some private messages that I've gotten from some of you, it seems like most of you are really looking for that next adventure right now. And so what we're going to focus on the next hour are these three things. How do you get your mindset in the right place for networking in the new normal that we're in this age of Zoom, where you can't just grab a cup of coffee with somebody in person or go out to lunch? And then how very tactically do you do that online as well as in the industry in a more broader sense? And so before we jump into it, I do want to take a second and just remind you all. So we're going to do a big step back. And hopefully most of you can recognize the beautiful woman at right, the Rosa Parks. And there's something really important that most of us don't know about Rosa Parks. And that is that she was not the face of the civil rights movement because what she did was so unique. In fact, Rosa Parks was not the first woman or person to refuse to give up their seat on a bus during the pre-civil rights era. But what did differentiate Rosa Parks from everybody else who had done it before is that she was somebody who was involved in a number of different places in the community and professionally. So she had what's called weak ties. So she volunteered to help those who were less fortunate than her. And she volunteered in another area where she would put together groceries and in a food bank. And she had a job or two jobs. And what that allowed her to do, and certainly she was involved with her church, it put her in a situation where she had what are called weak ties to a number of disparate organizations. And weak ties are something that for those of us, especially for women who are looking to try and network and connect, are really important to understand. Because what weak ties do is they allow you to be connected to other groups of people, but you don't have to have a real strong, close, intimate relationship that's built on trust or have a strong rapport there. And it's actually something that is counterintuitive to how most women like to operate. Like most of us like to have these real strong, deep relationships. And so having a weak one feels somewhat inauthentic to many of us. But once you can understand what those weak ties do and how they can help you with your career, hopefully you'll start to take a little bit of a different take on it. And so when you think about a weak tie, it really comes down to these four different things. So what's the frequency of contact that you have with them? What's the emotional intensity? How intimate is it? Meaning, do I confide in you and do you confide in me? And how do we have a win-win or value exchange type of relationship where we are providing services to each other? So a strong tie would be that all of these things are, there's a lot of frequency of contact. It is intense. We confide in each other. A weak tie is like those things are barely existing. And again, generally tends to be the opposite of how women like to interact. And quite frankly, many times we'll think like, oh, somebody's a user if they're asking somebody who they have a weak tie with or something. But when you look at research from Granovetter, which has been proven time and time again over the course of nearly now 40 years, and you think about the kind of role that you're looking for on your journey right now, the highest status of, you know, executive level, professional level, office workers, most of us, if you're coming to Connect for Women through Jen De Silva and her amazing Connect for Women efforts, and now what they've built with Shecovery, you're probably somewhere in the professional, you could be high status, office worker, but I'm going to guess most of you are not blue collar workers. And what's really important to know about that is that if you are in that semi-professional office worker or professional type of role, research shows that you are much more likely to get your next job by leveraging weak ties, not by those people who you're really close with. Okay. And so what it does is it connects you in. So just like with a board like this, you want to be connected into as many places as humanly possible. And that's what we're going to be focusing on in the time that we have here together. But just so that I can get a little bit of a sense of all of you, what I am going to do, I want you to open up another browser. You could do it on your computer, you could do it on your phone, and you are going to go to a site, type in Menti, MENTI.com. Can everybody see the screen right now where it says, how do you feel about networking? Awesome. And so what you see there, you'll go to menti.com, MENTI.com, and you'll put in this code that you see right here. And I'll say it for you in case you're opening it on your phone and you're calling it on your phone. The code you'll put in once you get there is 9459833. Okay, once again, that code is 9459833. And tell us, how do you feel about networking? We need to know these things so that we can make this as productive as possible for all of us. If you're a Lisa Simpson, by the way, and you'd rather get a root canal than have to make that phone call, that's okay. One thing or two things I want you to know for the next hour that we have here. Number one, this is a judgment-free zone. And number two, we're going to make this as interactive as we can be. But what we're going to do is we're going to save questions till the end because we're going to cover a lot. I want to make sure I might be able to proactively address some of the questions that you have, but I want to know what your questions are. But I'm also going to have you use the chat sometimes throughout this. So don't put your questions in the chat. Write down your question or make a little note for yourself of what question you want to ask. And then we'll get towards that at the end. And then we'll also save a little bit of time to cross network amongst those of us who are here towards the end as well, so that we can really make this as action-packed as possible. Okay, so it looks like most of you could use a little bit of help on the networking front. And good, I'm so glad to hear that because that's why we're here. I also want to know, what is the toughest part of networking for you? I've done these workshops dozens of times, and it really has been very different depending upon the type of role people are in, the kind of organization that they're in, where they are in their career trajectory. So feel free to let us know what is difficult about it for you. Response time, and hopefully you'll start to see these answers coming up. In real time, telling your story, that is something that is critical. And unfortunately, we're not going to have time in today's session, but we will touch on it in terms of how you can start to tap into your story to get those real, genuine, and authentic connections in our time together. Adding value, we're going to talk about that too. Follow up. I'll tell you a little secret on that one because we're not really focusing on that too much in this. What I'll do is when I meet someone, the first thing I do pretty much while I'm still on the phone or having a Zoom call with them is I'll put in my calendar a calendar invite or a meeting for myself and set it as a recurring weekly with that person and just follow up. And that way, if somehow I get too crazy, I'm not getting to it this week, well, then it's going to pop up as another meeting, like in the middle of my workday for the next week. Feeling of bothering. We're going to talk about that. And it looks like follow-up is a lot here. Okay, good. So we'll be able to talk more about that. And ghosting is one which related to follow-up in many cases. So we will address a lot of this, and thank you for sharing this. And Jen, just so you know, and Julie, I will share out with you the input that everyone's sharing with us, so that for future programs, we'll know really where we can provide the most help for all of these amazing women. Okay, I've got one more question for you here. Where do you spend most of your time networking? Does it tend to be, if you are still currently employed, with colleagues, or if you're not currently employed, with previous colleagues that you were working with? Is it through social media and LinkedIn? Is it by attending conferences or events? I know the world is shut down, but there are a lot of different virtual events that are going on. We're at one of those right now. Leveraging your personal network, or I'm blocking myself, or industry associations. And again, while you are filling that out right now, what I also want to, if you could put in the chat, what industry do you work in? Okay, so that will help us as well to see if we can narrow down the field a bit. I'll tell you a little bit about me as you put that into the chat right now. I have spent, I don't know how, because I'm only 14 years old, but I've spent more than 20 years in digital marketing and technology. And I know that Jen is from the advertising and creative side of the industry as well. And so I'm interested to see what we've got here. Okay, great. So we have a really interesting group of women. We've got DEI, we've got entertainment, consumer goods, events and tourism, HR coaching. So we are absolutely across the board here. It is helpful to see that so many of you are on LinkedIn. That's awesome. I'm thrilled to see that you're leveraging your personal network and friends, and we'll actually spend a little bit of time talking about the industry associations and conferences and events and how you can do more of that, because that is something that can help you tremendously as you are looking for that next opportunity. So I'm going to stop sharing here. You don't have to answer that right now. And we are going to go back to what we're going to be focusing on. So you all know the value of networking because you're here. So you were not forced into this, and you know that there's so many things that it can help you with in terms of finding that next role. But in fact, based off of original research that we've done, my company is called Wet Cement. It's not concrete or construction, but it's about helping you make your mark. So just like when you have actual wet cement, there's a limited window of time where you can make that impression that you want to last. And most of the work that we do is really focused on women's leadership. We've done original research with a team of behavioral scientists from Wharton, and to understand what are those barriers that hold people back from achieving their professional potential. And then we look at that based on gender. And what we see is that just a little bit more than half of you think that you're better than average when it comes to networking. And that's when you're comparing yourself to other women, even at the same age as you. And so if you feel like you're not really great at networking, well, guess what? You're not alone. Everybody feels this way. And that's what we're going to focus on. What's fascinating to know, though, is that you are 3 times more likely to get a better job if you are relying on other women, though. And so just as some of you had shared through Menti that if, it can feel a little icky, or that cold outreach can make you uncomfortable, well, that's okay. You need to understand how to do that. Because according to research that's out there from the National Academy of Sciences, and thank you, Jen DeGennaro, for first pointing me towards this, women who have a close inner circle, but a wide group of those weak ties, are those who are much more likely to get better jobs. So, and this is where we're different than men. Men do not need all of these weak ties, even though they're better at getting them than we are, unfortunately. They can have a close group of men or men and women that help them on their journey, but women really need to be able to connect to all of these different disparate groups of people that don't know each other. So if you think about what that would look like, it's like you have a friend or an ally who you're close to, and then another one, but it's their connections that then help you build out that network as much as possible. So for those of you who said that after LinkedIn, you're leveraging your friends and family, awesome, doing that. But don't just rely on them. Really ask those people to give you connections into that next level. And once you are willing to start, there's going to be no stopping you, and it will be your superpower. I know it. So one thing that's really important from a mindset perspective, especially based on some of those answers that you had shared in Menti, is getting to view networking as a challenge and not a threat. So the way it works from a scientific perspective is if you look at something like networking, and what you'll do is you'll evaluate whether or not you have the resources necessary to do it. And so if you think that you have sufficient resources, then it'll be what's called a challenge state. But if you feel like you have insufficient resources, meaning in many cases, like you just don't know how to do that initial cold outreach, or you don't know how to do the follow-up in a really great way, then you'll see it as a threat. And what happens is when you view it as a threat, you actually have a biochemical response where your heart rate goes up and you release cortisol, which means you're not going to do as well as if you were viewing it as a challenge. And just like with horror movies and puzzles or Rubik's Cubes and roller coasters, some of you may feel like it's a challenge that you love and enjoy, and some of you may feel like it is a threat and you'd rather do anything else on earth. We're all different when it comes to this. And sometimes just a little shift in that mindset that can make you really thrive in those situations. So the first trick and tip that I want you to employ for the networking that you have coming up is to throw the word networking out of your vocabulary and instead think of it as professional gift giving. Okay, now this is one of the things that's also really different between men and women when it comes to professional gift giving. And that is, women are so amazing because we love giving gifts. We love helping others. The behavioral science term for this is we are more engaged in pro-social behaviors, which means we care more about the group and other people's happiness in many cases than we care about our own. And so when you apply that thinking to networking and think first about how you can help somebody else, even though you are networking, you're trying to find a job. I hear you. But if you think about it, how can you help this other person? It is going to start to shift how you're reaching out to people and what you will end up getting in return for that. So one amazing woman who I'm grateful to have in my life, Yuko Furuichi, who is one of the youngest female CEOs in Japan. She says, always think of it as give and take. If you ask someone for something, you have to give something in return. And I'd say even flip this on its head. Think first of how are you giving something? And then once you do that, you can start to ask for things in return. So to a little bit of the point of what your story is, something following on my Japanese friend Yuko, who introduced me to the concept of ikigai, is as you can start to understand what is your sense of professional purpose or your ikigai, the westernized version of ikigai, that is going to help you tremendously. So let me just walk you through what ikigai is, and hopefully this will make a little bit more sense. And give me a thumbs up. I'm going to put you in gallery mode here so I can see as many of you as I can. Give me a thumbs up if you're familiar with the concept of ikigai. Okay, so I see 2 ikigai fans out there. Okay, good. Well, then hopefully 3. Okay, good. So for those of you, it seems like most of you are not familiar with Ikigai. Real quick, it's looking at what it is you love. What are you good at? What can you be paid for? And what does the world need? So those 4 different dimensions. And then you're thinking about what's at the confluence of those things. And so as you take time, as you're in this process to be able to nail that down, that will not only help you to be able to articulate that to others, but quite frankly, it'll help you make sure that that next gig that you get is something that will be really fulfilling to you. Because I think we all know that we give 1,000%, especially in this world of always on. And so considering there are a zillion things you could do in life, make sure that that thing that you're doing is something that is fulfilling for you. And look, your professional job, what pays the bill, does not necessarily need to hit on all 4 cylinders all the time. So you may find a job, let's say it was in the media world or advertising, that you love doing it and you're really good at it and you can get paid well for it, but you may not feel like, oh, I'm helping children with cancer and that's how I view what the world needs, or I'm helping homeless kids, or I'm helping cats and stay out of shelters. Like, you may have those kinds of causes that are really important to you that may not align to your job in any way, but you need to make sure you're still finding time in your life for those causes that are important to you. So as you, and in that, in the handout that, again, if you haven't already downloaded that right now, and actually I will ask you, Julie, if you could do me a favor and just copy the link and repost it into the chat. So for any of the women who joined us a little bit later, they can click on that link in the chat and download the handout. We've got Ikigai, this image is there for you, and you'll be able to come back to that. So think about it right now. If you had to think about what is it that you are good at, and this is so difficult for women, but you are great at some things. And so if you had to have this proverbial gift exchange from a networking perspective, and you had to think of what are you really good at where you can help somebody else, and then also take a moment and think about, well, what is it that you could use help with? Where do you really need help right now in order to land that next gig? Tell us what those would be. And so I'm in Menti again. I'm going to open this up because sometimes what can be magical is when we get a group of women together and there's some matches within there. And then we can make sure that we have time to connect you and find ways that you can help. So owning the things that you're great at is so important. So we've got seeing the big picture, creativity, organization. Oh my God, please send me a note. I need help with organization, not my skill. Thank you for sharing those gifts that you have. And it is so helpful because once you can identify that, when you start the outreach that we'll get more specific about here in a second, those are ways that you can offer your help to other people. So it's not going to feel so icky or awkward for any of that cold outreach, or certainly once you start that conversation, because then from that follow-up perspective, you'll know exactly how and where you can follow up with them. We've got curiosity, agility, detail-orientedness, project management, authenticity, resilience. So many things that in the world that we're in that are absolutely critical. And so you should feel comfortable holding on to that. But now we also really need to know where are the areas that you need help from a networking perspective. So certainly we know it's finding a job for those that are looking for a job, which is nearly all of you. Are there other areas as it relates to skills that will be really critical for you in order to get that next job? Or if you're in a job and you're really unhappy right now and you're looking for the next one, what can either help you potentially even get promoted internally, or how you can position yourself externally? So any gifts that you'd like to get, or areas where you could use help. And it could be things around, I know many times we'll do this, it's around speaking publicly. It could be around developing your personal brand. It could be around LinkedIn It could be around writing and in terms of putting together really strong but succinct outreach messages that you'll be doing. Data and analytics, absolutely. Technology. Okay, great. So it's always helpful. Strong cover letters, story building, business writing. Now, networking is such an amazing way to be able to help with all of these different areas. But I will say right now, there's also, if you have not done it yet, there is so much amazing free content that's out there right now. And so think about what is that thing that you just put down here and ask yourself, have you taken a course on that recently? Have you signed up for a free online coaching session? Is this something that is part of the work that you're doing with Recovery that you could or should reach out to the mentors who have volunteered to say, hey, I can help you with that? And then I'll just tell you, one of the things I've been doing lately is I am always listening to an Audible. So I have a different book that's constantly going around the areas where I need help. And because we all don't have enough time in the day, I now, instead of listening to music when I work out, I listen to Audible and I'll just listen to a book. And I promise you, if you go to a place like Audible, or if you want a podcast on confidence or presentation skills, you'll find a million great choices out there. So those are ways you can help yourself in this process. And certainly if it's around confidence, I'd strongly recommend that you check out Wet Cement, wet-cement.com. We have a whole series of videos called Fearless in 5 that you'll be able to access. And we'll also give you a free code for some of the other content that we have that is behind a firewall, but you can all access because you're a part of this program today. Okay, so heading back over here, and now we're getting real tactical. So we're going to talk about, from an online perspective, what specifically that you can do. And as I had mentioned, these are the areas that we focus on at Wet Cement. How do you connect? How do you take control? How do you have confidence? How do you communicate and have the courage to do all of that? And that's what we're going to get from a technical, tactical perspective here. So the first thing that I really want you to do is to look in what I call the LinkedIn mirror and really take a look at what does your profile look like to other people. So as you see, this is my profile up here, certainly not perfect, but there are a few things that I want to point out. So first off, how you describe yourself in terms of who you are. What does yours say? Does it make it, is it some description that somebody would look at that and say, oh gosh, I want somebody like that working for my team? You also, there's an about section. So many times when I look at people's profiles, and people who tell me they're actively job seeking, they don't even have anything in their about section. And so take some time to really think about, what do you want to craft for your about section? Because that's like your headline for anybody who's going to look at your profile. Then there's a featured section that, again, most people I see are not taking advantage of. But that's an opportunity for you to put anything in there, any kind of link, any white paper that you've written. If you were interviewed at any point, you can add the interview link there. And so what you can do is have a little bit, like, certainly as part of Recovery, for any of the women that you are having mentoring sessions with, think about, what is that story that you want to tell, and how can you bring that to life through a few different assets that you can have featured right there front and center. If for some reason you are trying to move up, and let's say you don't have a college degree, and that's something that has been challenging for you, a little secret for LinkedIn that you could use is you can sign up for a distance learning course. They generally last anywhere from 2 weeks to 12 weeks from an amazing program like Harvard or Wharton or Cornell. It's funny, I actually did go to Cornell for undergrad, but I also took a Cornell Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion program. And many times that's what's now coming up as people see my profile and they're seeing it from from that program. And for so many other people, they may have gone to a community college, or they didn't go to college, but they took a Harvard program. And now that's showing up not only as where they went to school and adding a little bit of credibility, but something you may not know about LinkedIn is if you have a university in common with somebody else, it will allow you to connect with them and invite them to connect easier than if you don't have a school in common. So invest in yourself. A lot of these programs are $1,500 or so, and not only can help give you those tools that you need to land that next job and make you feel more confident, considering how important confidence was, but also allow you to connect with people much better. If you look at your LinkedIn completely objectively and ask a few people that you know and trust to look at your LinkedIn, and especially any of the mentors that you may have a connection with through this program, ask them to look at your LinkedIn and give you some honest feedback. And guess what? If your LinkedIn is really hurting and you need help, get professional help. There are tons of different services out there. I don't get paid anything for this. So anything I recommend in the time that we have together, I'm not making a dime off of it. I'm just, they're sources and resources that I know and trust. Katie Fogarty at the Reboot Group is amazing. She works with everyone from CEOs of Fortune 100 companies to women who are in their 20s who are trying to get their LinkedIn act together. That's one of, again, hundreds of services that are out there that can really give you that objective view and help you. Like for those of you who said that writing is one of your challenges, or telling your story, they can help you pull out that story. And so just to give you an example of how this might work. So let's say I wanted to reach out to Carla, and she's somebody that I'm not connected with. The first thing that I strongly suggest that you do is you actually create a template that you can use. That for me, I keep my template either in like Apple Notes, or I'll keep it in my drafts folder in my email. And in fact, I have a whole bunch of different templates. So depending upon who I want to connect with and what category in my mind they fall into. So let's say if you were looking for one type of job, but in a bunch of different verticals, you might tweak that a little bit for each one of those verticals. Or if you're not sure exactly what you want to do, and there's a few different kinds of jobs you're going after, create a LinkedIn invite for each and every one of those. Now, with that LinkedIn invite, you only get 300 characters. So you want to make sure that you're maximizing every single character in that LinkedIn invite. And that's why I love doing it in a place where then I can reuse it over and over and over and know that it's literally using every single character that I can get. And so write that out, and then make sure that you're using a personalized connect for everyone that you're trying to get to, because research shows that the likelihood that someone's going to accept your connect is substantially higher if you include it. But do take, even though I said make a template, take a minute or two to customize it or tweak it just a little bit so that the person feels like you are writing that personal note to them. Do not use things like, hey, I actually got this last week. Hey, this research shows you're more likely to accept my invite if I write a personal note. So here I'm writing this. No, no, no. Make it very clear, going back to your ikigai of what your mission is and how you're like-minded with these people, and put that into that template LinkedIn invite outreach that you create. And so what I have is I've got those LinkedIn templates ready to go. And again, I try and break it down to get to the point of what I believe their mission is and how it's aligned with mine, and how we could explore how we could collaborate or how we could help each other. And I will tell you, I have a very high acceptance rate. And it's not because I have a CEO in my title, because I've been using the same exact formula for about 10 years or so since I started using LinkedIn, of making sure it's all about that gift giving, that win-win, that value exchange of how and why I'm reaching out to this person. very specific with that. And then once they accept, I immediately invite them to virtual coffee. Okay. And so then to prepare for that virtual coffee, not only I have another templatized follow-up that is ready to go for the moment that they hit connect. I immediately just copy that draft templatized version of my follow-up, tweak it a little bit, and send that through right away. The other thing that I would strongly advise all of you to do, if you don't have it already, is to invest in using a calendar app. So I now use Calendly, Calendly. There's also another program that you can use called Acuity, Acuity. If anybody's familiar with those, just put them in the chat there so that everybody can follow that. It costs, there are free versions. And then even if you want, like I have a pro version, because I love the fact that it will actually get somebody's cell phone number and text them a reminder before the call, which there's been a lot of people having email issues. And so being able to confirm with a text message, and you can, for those of you who said follow-up is a problem, once somebody uses your Calendly tool to schedule time for the two of you, first of all, they're the ones who take that effort to find time that works for them. So it saves you so much trouble and it makes their life so much easier rather than going back and forth to try and find time for virtual coffee. But you can actually automate the follow-up communications after somebody picks that time. So you can set it up so that depending upon the kind of meeting or the kind of person that they are, and you could have several different calendar types, again, based on the different kinds of jobs that you're looking for, based on the different type of outreach it is, you can then have a totally different follow-up message that is automated and goes out and you don't even have to think about it. I also really use it as an opportunity because you can also ask questions while they're picking that time that's convenient for them. I have built in there where it says, in order to maximize our time together, I'd love to understand what are your top priorities right now? Or what are the things that you'd like to talk about? And so before I even go into that initial meeting, I already know a little bit about this person. Okay, so if you like the Calendly or Acuity idea, give me a little thumbs up. Make sure that you're all still there and awake. Okay, awesome, great. And then when you set up that time for the virtual coffee, all you need is to be curious and to be in that gift-giving mindset again and have just a few questions that can get you started. So asking them first about their journey and what are their priorities right now, or what are they focused on right now? And then the very simple question of how can I help you? And there is a basic tenet of human beings, which is awesome, which is most people have a real need, and especially women, that if they are being helped, they want to return the favor. And so as soon as you can find ways that you can provide value to them, remember those gifts that we just talked about of those things that you're really good at, you can say, how can I help you? You know, one of the things my friends say I'm really good at is organization. Or my friends say I'm a really great writer, or how can I help you to get their thought starters going? And certainly, as we talked about, reciprocity being the key to relationships. One of my amazing friends and partners, Hira Ali, who is a UK Goodwill ambassador and author, she says reciprocity is the key to lasting and genuine relationships. Support others first before asking for favors via introductions, referrals, recommendations, and shout outs. So right now, I want you to think about this. When you think about the activity that you've had in LinkedIn, how many referrals or recommendations have you written in the last month for other amazing people who have helped you throughout your career? Give me a thumbs up if you've written more than 3 recommendations for other people in the last month. Now remember, this is a judgment-free zone here. Okay, so I'm not seeing any thumbs up. So guess what? that means it's a great opportunity. Leanne, a little whoop whoop for you, girl. Keep it up. For the rest of us, think about who are those people in your career journey who have helped you along the way. Go back to the beginning. What was your first job out of college or your internship? And out of the blue, set a reminder for yourself in your calendar that you are going to write a recommendation for that person in LinkedIn. It will, first off, make their day. It's going to be this like getting a gift of like, oh my gosh, I had no idea Gabby was going to write that. That's so sweet. It makes them look good. And then it's so easy to send them a note, which you should, through LinkedIn to say, you know, I was thinking about you recently and how you've helped me on my journey. And I wrote a recommendation, wanted you to know so that you can approve it, because just so all of you know, when you write a recommendation for someone, sometimes they don't even see that you've done it. They have to go into a separate area and approve that recommendation. So I always, after you write the recommendation, send them a message and say, I was thinking of you. I'm so grateful for the help that you've given me along the way. Would love to see how you're doing, what you're focused on, and how I may help. And, you know, please make sure you approve that recommendation. I can assure you that is going to turn on some of those old folks in your network that perhaps you haven't connected with in a while. And then, like I said, set a calendar reminder for yourself, a weekly recurring calendar appointment, where maybe it's even just one a week that you strive to do. And it's going to bring so much joy and happiness and karma into your life. I always like to talk about the karma jar, right? So you want to fill up that karma jar so that when you need to take out the good stuff, you can. Now, I'm happy to see that many of you talked about follow-up and how that's important, because one thing that you can do is create what I call a tickler file. One way that you can do this is to literally make a list. You can put it as also a recurring calendar appointment into your calendar of all those people that you want to stay in touch with in an ongoing basis. Not every day, not every week, maybe it's once a quarter. And just those people who might be critical for you. And then once a quarter, what you can do is think about when that reminder comes up, you know, what did I send to Morella lately that she would care about? Oh, well, I know she's really into connected television and where the future of connected TV is going. So I'm going to Google an article about connected television. And I'm going to send that article to Morella and say, hey, Morella, I was just thinking of you. I really enjoyed our last conversation where you said this was important to you. I saw this article and it made me think of you. And bam, you are going to be top of mind for Morella. And she's going to then say, when you say, oh, how about we grab virtual coffee sometime soon? She's going to be grateful for you to do that. And it's not just women that you should be doing this with. This is 2 examples of men who have done this for me. So they know that helping women professionally is my jam. And so all the time, I'll get emails from them. I'll get text messages with articles. They are amazing networkers. And anytime I could possibly help them, they are the first people that I am going to try to offer help with. So think of that tickler file strategy. Make that recurring calendar appointment for yourself, and right in the notes section of the recurring calendar appointment, put the names of all those people that you want to make sure that you are reaching out to. Now, certainly, as all of you know, being a part of She-Covery and Connect for Women, there's nothing more powerful than introducing other people so that you can make an introduction exchange. So if you connect with any of the women on here tonight, or any of those women in your life, ask them, who do they want to get introduced to? How can you leverage your network for them? And then, just like the whole premise that Jen built with Connect for Women, make a commitment to yourself that I'm going to try to connect, even if it's as small as 2 amazing women or 2 amazing people and allies on a weekly basis, so that it will help them push things forward. And I promise you, the karma jar in action will work. And it can be as simple as doing it over some virtual cocktails, where maybe you get together a group of women and think of that power of the pack. And how do you say, who are all the professional women that I know of that are currently looking for things and doing it that way? Or certainly formally being a part of Connect for Women and making that kind of commitment to yourself. Nothing works better, I promise you, than the karma jar. Another important thing that you need to be doing in today's world is building your own brand through thought leadership. So go back to Ikigai, close your eyes for a second and think about it. What is the thing that you love professionally? So what is the thing that like you would say like, oh, that's my jam? And then what you want to start doing is making a commitment to yourself to start leveraging LinkedIn to be somewhat of a thought leader. And you don't have to start off by making 5-minute Fearless in 5 videos. You can start off as simply as looking for articles on a regular basis that relate to that topic that you want to be known for in your industry and posting that article with a little bit of a POV on it. So you don't just share it, but you actually add a few lines about why you think this is important. And then once you write up those few lines, you think about who are some of the most influential people that you know of, going back to that tickler file, that care about this topic, and tag them in that post. Then you get to the next level of thought leadership. And what you can do is say, you know what, I want to write an article about this topic, or I'm going to create a blog about this. And for that topic that you care about, you can say, who are those influential people that I know of that I'd like to get their perspective? And you send them a note and you say, you know what, I've been thinking about writing an article on women's leadership. And Julie and Jen, I would love your perspective on this. And so we have a quick chat. And then you don't need to write a 5,000 word article. You can literally write like 5 bullet points of, in this world of trying to find a job, here are some things. And then you tag Julie and Jen in it. And then you ask them for them to share it with their network as well. You also ask them to comment on your post and for them to like it, because that will help with the algorithm so that you start getting more and more prominent in other people's news feeds. And then when people are thinking like, oh, I need somebody in D&I, they'll be like, I need Gabby. I don't know if I remember that correctly, Gabby, that was what you're, okay, good. Okay, so the final thing we're going to focus on in the last few minutes is what you could be doing in the industry. And so the great news is there's so many free options out there. If you have not spent time in Eventbrite, there's so many different programs you can sign up for free that you will find professionally that will be relevant for you. And then as things continue to arrive, you'll start getting notifications for those events as well. So there's things that you can think about from an industry perspective, what's interesting to you. You could also think about from a networking perspective, or again, women's leadership, and start participating in some of the online events that are out there. There's programs, Evolve Her is one of them, where what they're doing is curating all of these different events that are happening virtually. So it's Evolve Her, you see it in the top left, and Luminary, Luminary, is another amazing resource where they have programs where you can get involved and be a part of some of these events and really start connecting with people. The other thing you want to do is like think about what industry is it that you're in and what industry associations could you or should you be a part of. So in many cases, especially if you're out of work right now, many of these organizations will have very discounted rates that you can join for $50, $95 for the year. And they'll have all different kinds of programs that are constantly going on. They may have workshops, they may have mentoring programs. I'm a part of Diversity Alliance for Science. They have the most amazing mentoring program where I think I had to pay like $300 to join. I have 20 companies that are mentoring me. It is priceless. So think about that and don't be penny wise and pound foolish. So if there is something that you're like, this is the core of the organization industry I need to be involved with, and it's going to be $50, spend the $50. I promise you it will be worth it to do it. The other thing that you can also do is to think about, where do you take those gifts that you have, like organization or writing or agility or any of those things that you talked about, and think about, where can you give of yourself to help for nonprofits that are, again, aligned to thinking about your ikigai. What is it that you love? So now it'll be a way for you to get involved in it and not feel like work, but you'll be so excited that you're giving back. And then your network will continue to get wider and wider with more of those weak ties, as we had talked about. And so we have covered off a lot in about 50 minutes here. So if nothing more, I want you to remember, you got this. And even though you probably don't go outside too much anymore right now, think that with every step that you're taking out there, as if it's saying, you got this as you go. And so I know we have a few minutes left. What I'd love for us to do is certainly take any questions that you may have. And then also, like I had said, please put your LinkedIn information into the chat. I will put mine as well right now so that you will all have that. And I'll also put the information for the free content that all of you can get. So again, if you go to the Wet Cement website, and it's wet-cement.com, you'll see an area that says exclusive for members, and you can access the information in there that covers a lot of the content that you had put in the areas where you can need help with just the passcode FEARLESS, FEARLESS. And yes, please put those LinkedIn messages or your LinkedIn addresses in there, and let's all make sure we're connecting with each other and make that commitment to help each other on our journeys. And so please connect with me too. And so I want to open this up to questions.
Jen, I'm going to take it off recording so that way people can feel free to say whatever they want. Great job.
Perfect.